Welcome to Win Wednesdays. A few reminders before we begin. This session is being recorded and the recording will be available at our website, www.acceleratingwin.org. And throughout today's session, you're welcome to submit any questions through the Q&A function on Zoom. You don't need to wait until the end. You're welcome to get those questions in as they come, and then we will get them to our guest later in our session today. The Women in Industry Initiative is an initiative of Point Park University's Roland School of Business. It's about educating and empowering, accelerating the success of women and women-identified students and professionals, and engaging leaders, affecting conversations, and encouraging allyship through elevating experiences. We have several different initiatives at this point under the WIN umbrella. One is our WIN Wednesdays virtual speaker series, which you have joined us for today. We also have a Fireside Fridays virtual discussion chats that we are doing on the first Friday of just about every month. And then we have our Accelerating Women in Industry event that happens in March, aligned with International Women's Day. You're welcome to support us and the work that we're doing through our website. I'm Doreen Saletti. I am a faculty member at Point Park University's Roland School of Business in the marketing and sales area. And I'm here with my colleague, Sandy Mervosh, who is also a faculty member of the Roland School of Business, who coordinates our HR program. So I'm going to turn it over to Sandy to introduce our guest and get us started today. Sandy?
Thank you, Doreen. And we are really very pleased today to welcome Secretary Dunn to be with us on our WIN Wednesday, kicking off the spring semester. Cindy Adams Dunn is the Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, which manages 121 state parks and 2.2 million acres of state forest for recreation and other values, provides conservation and recreation technical assistance in a large related grants program, and operates the Pennsylvania Geological Survey. At DCNR, she has helped position Pennsylvania as a leader in land conservation, outdoor recreation, green practices, and public land management. During her tenure, the department created the Pennsylvania Outdoor Corps to connect youth and young adults with job opportunities relating to the outdoors and the environment. Under her direction, Pennsylvania continues efforts to address the impact of climate change, as well as providing leadership on planting forest buffers along streams to improve water quality. Secretary Dunn has worked in both the public and private sectors. She served in several leadership posts at leading environmental advocacy groups like Audubon, Pennsylvania, the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, and Penn Future. She is a trained biologist, and when not at work championing conservation, her hobbies include birding, fishing, canoeing, and hiking. Secretary Dunn, thank you for joining with us today, and we're very excited to hear your story of blazing the trail.
Good, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm delighted to be with you today. I've been intrigued by your college. I've passed your sign many times on my way to Point State Park, and so it's special to me to be speaking to you today. And I really I'm glad for those of you who have made time to attend, and hopefully you find a way to have a relationship with our agency going forward. I'm hoping that what I'm able to say will engage you in pursuing a career with DCNR, or in becoming a steward in natural resources, or visiting the parks and forests that are yours as citizens of Pennsylvania. They belong to you. So pretty excited for this opportunity. And I think it says a lot about you when you're willing to step up and spend the extra hour on something like WIN Wednesdays. So with that, I'll have my first slide just to tell you a little bit about our agency and everything that's within the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. And hopefully that gives you some ideas on how to connect with our mission. And as has been mentioned, we have 121 state parks, Point State Park, which undoubtedly many of you avail yourselves to on breaks or take a little walk right down there at the Three Rivers, and be at that very magical place where American Indians before us and many others have really felt the magic of the Three Rivers coming together, or any of the 120 other state parks. All of our state parks are at a place in Pennsylvania that's special, that was felt to be important for all citizens and therefore required to belong to all citizens by being a state park. We have 2.5 million acres of total land, 2.2 are forest land, and the forest land's managed in part for the economy. We have a thriving forest products industry in Pennsylvania. And in fact, if you stood on the banks of the Allegheny 100 years ago, you'd have seen a lot of logs floating down. But we have a thriving industry today. A lot of logs are shipped all over the world. We're the hardwood lumber capital of the world, really. The cherry hardwoods coming out of Pennsylvania are world renowned. And interestingly, you may not think of a park and forest agency as one with a lot of infrastructure, but we manage 4,700 buildings, 3,700 miles of roads, 121 dams, 842 bridges, 180 boat launches, wastewater treatment plants, water treatment plants. And to do all this, we employ rangers, law enforcement rangers. We employ engineers, maintenance staff, educators, environmental educators, foresters, geologists, botanists, and all kinds of and communication specialists, all kinds of employees of all types. Again, we manage one of the largest infrastructures in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, so we have a strong management element to our daily work. The second point is that we work to conserve the Commonwealth's land and water resources through sound ecosystem management. And that's for a number of purposes. Number one, the biodiversity of Pennsylvania, the plants of Pennsylvania, the wildlife of Pennsylvania belong to all people. And we manage that for generations yet to come. And so what that means is, if you think about a child born, 20 years from now, the wealth of the Commonwealth should be there for them as it is for you, as it was for me. Again, managing it so that the opportunity and the richness of our biodiversity is still there. Water resources value to humans, need no explanation. We all understand just how important and challenging it is to have water resources be safe for people, but wildlife also need it, and it's important for downstream users as well. So we play a major role there. We plant a lot of trees along stream sides and in urban areas to filter the water and keep it clean. And in doing so, provide great diversity for the species that depend on all of that. It's interesting, as was mentioned, I'm a bird watcher too, and when I walk around Pittsburgh, even in the most urban areas, it's a very good bird area, and it's because of the trees. You have a great Tree Vitalized program in Pittsburgh and a good urban tree program. Urban trees require a lot of management and maintenance, and the city and the county have done a very good job with help from DCNR and our partners with Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. Number three, we strive to provide quality access to outdoor recreation. And I don't know if you think about your life this past year with the COVID pandemic, you may be like many Pennsylvanians, and you may be spending more time outdoors, more time hiking, more time visiting parks than you ever have before. We have been watching the numbers and managing, frankly, large crowds, at parks, at forests and trails across Pennsylvania. It's been a phenomenon as the COVID pandemic has forced restrictions on indoor activity for people to be safe. More and more have turned to the outdoors as a place they can go and be safe. They mask up if you're traveling there, but when you're by yourself or with people from your own that you're under the same roof with anyway, you can really be safe in the outdoors. And we've just seen at least a 30% increase in visitation. In some parks, they've seen a 100% increase. And an interesting phenomenon, winter camping, we've seen more camping continue right through, from summer into fall and into winter. Camping reservations are the highest any of us remember in our careers. So it's very interesting, this engagement with the outdoors, more important than ever. Number 4, we play a major role in Pennsylvania's communities. We have an urban grant program that provides playgrounds and parks and trails. The Great Allegheny Passage comes right by your university, but it starts in Washington, D.C. and ends there at Point State Park. That project takes a lot of planning and engineering and funding and vision and community leadership and communications, so that projects like that come into urban areas are really critical to provide access to recreation, access to nature to all citizens, which is our mandate as an agency of state government. We have vibrant programs for all kinds of amenities in the urban areas and in the rural areas of Pennsylvania through a grants program that we operate. And Pennsylvania is very fortunate. Besides 121 state parks, we have about 6,000 local parks. And this, looking at Allegheny County alone, between the city of Pittsburgh and all these communities in Allegheny County, we have hundreds and hundreds of local parks. And some of the city parks and county parks there in your region are among the biggest and most vibrant in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So if you haven't availed yourself of the city and county parks in your region, many of them are accessible via bus or by trail for you to visit and connect with. Really encourage you to do that, because some of those parks in your area are the size of state parks and the complexity of state parks. So number 5, we promote and build sustainable infrastructure. We have a climate initiative in our agency. I'm proud to say we were one of the first agencies to launch an agency-wide climate initiative. We identified hundreds of steps that we as an agency could take to do our share on climate and reducing greenhouse gases, and on engaging the public with climate and what they could do to help reduce climate gases and also provide a better future for Pennsylvanians and frankly, the nation. Pennsylvania is a huge state in the climate equation. When you think about it, we're a big energy producer. We produce enough energy and enough CO2. It really makes us up there with a lot of small countries just as a Commonwealth. And of course, Southwest Pennsylvania plays an important role in our energy resources, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So the climate question is a very big one. And I'd say the nexus of it in Pennsylvania is really Southwest Pennsylvania. So those of you who are in careers that relate to energy or contemplating careers that relate in some manner to energy, it's a very exciting place to be right now. In DCNR, as I mentioned, we have so much infrastructure that we maintain. So just doing our share with the infrastructure we have and reducing the climate impact of our infrastructure through adding solar arrays, through energy conservation. We have electric vehicles we're incorporating into our fleet, and we have electric vehicle charging stations. So more and more people who visit us have electric vehicles, have a way of traveling to the parks. And we have a massive statewide GESA program, Guaranteed Energy Savings Act program, where we're reducing energy consumption in all of these buildings through small fixes like LED light bulb changes, improving the shell of the building to make them more draft-free, to improving pumps and starter motors and everything that reduces our climate impact. So our climate initiatives on our website, hope you take a look. But we're also looking at landscape resiliency and connecting green spaces, again, which is a big initiative there in the Pittsburgh region as well. Allegheny County is looking to connect the parks that they have with green spaces. We do the same thing at a state level. If you travel east of Pittsburgh, the ridges of Chestnut Ridge, Laurel Ridge, and the Allegheny Front are big cross-state ridges that are forested. And So keeping these forested landscapes in picturing a warming climate where animals and biodiversity is all moving northward and upward in elevation where it's cooler. These major ridges in the Laurel Highlands are critical. So our Laurel Highlands initiative is considered a climate project for us. Again, very close to where you're going to college. Number 6 is something I just listened to the governor's budget address. Our governor, Tom Wolf, just released his budget proposal just an hour ago. And a major topic of his was really contributing to economic health of Pennsylvania. The COVID pandemic's been really difficult on our economic health. We don't have equal access to economic opportunities that across the Commonwealth and across all our sectors. But one thing important to that, the recreation economy is huge. Pennsylvania is 5th in the nation in terms of outdoor recreation economy. We are a state of people that hunt and fish and hike and kayak and spend money camping. And anyway, we're big. This economy counts for 250,000 Pennsylvania jobs. And it's something to think about. If that's an area of interest to you, recreation-based jobs can be everything from running outfitters to selling sporting goods to maintaining and managing places that people stay when they recreate. It's a vast array of services that are out there, and it's a big part of our economy. Pennsylvania is a state where people come to visit for their vacations because of our state parks, because of our terrain, because of how pretty we are. Frankly, we've got a lot more going on for us than a lot of surrounding states. And the economy that is built on the travel industry is very big for us as well. I'd like to just go to the next slide and talk a little bit about my own background. I was asked to think about what advice I could offer, and just a little bit about myself. I was fortunate enough to be raised in a family where the outdoors is what we did. My dad was a first generation. He became an engineer. He came from a family in Johnstown. Our family history had been working in the steel mills of Johnstown. And my dad was very interested in the outdoors as a child. He really roamed around the mountains around Johnstown. He saw the devastation from the mining, but he also saw the vast beauty of the Laurel Highlands and became interested in environmental engineering. And so as kids, I'm the one sitting on the ground. As kids, he took us to parks and on trips, and we explored nature. So I was very fortunate to have that in my background, and what I do today is the same thing as I did when I was a kid. I love, in my spare time, I go to a park every weekend. Even in the winter, I like hiking. I do kayaking all over the place, and especially in the waterways of Pennsylvania. And I certainly like any time spent outdoors. And for me, that's how I recharge. And that's why I titled this discussion, Blaze Your Own Trail. I do think for me, my career has just been a path of following my own passion for the outdoors. For others, there's different motivating factors, and everyone's life story and why they do what they do. But for me, I think it's just recognizing your core passions and how to realize them and really blaze your own trail. So I have some advice that I'll offer on the next slide, please. And this is tailored to women, but it really applies to everybody. I'm probably a good generation older than most of the folks I'm talking to today. And certainly when I entered the workforce, women were not frequent women in the environmental field at all. I was the first woman hired in the air quality unit that I started to work in the early 80s. And I didn't know whether it takes a job or not. I had some trepidation about it, but I think a theme for me has been step up when opportunity knocks. It's just it's something simple like even joining these extra discussions like the Wednesdays and other opportunities that you can avail yourself of. I think be the person that shows up. You don't know what you'll learn from something. I chose to go to an Earth Day talk once at another university, got in my car, drove a couple hours, and the speaker I heard was life-changing for me. I was a biology student and interested in biology and thought I'd pursue sort of a deep science career, probably in a lab somewhere. But I heard a speaker talk about conservation biology and about the concept of using biology to really as an advocate for conservation. And that really lit me up. And if I hadn't stepped up and taken the time to make that drive and listen to that speaker, it wouldn't have happened. But sometimes the opportunity knocks in a university setting, sometimes it's a work setting, sometimes it's a personal setting. And it's hard, it's always easier to do what you're already doing. It's a little harder sometimes to step up. And the reason people don't sometimes is confidence. So second piece of advice is don't underestimate yourself. And everybody can be guilty of underestimating themselves. Women, I find, particularly guilty of that. It's just public opinion surveys have shown sometimes women really underestimate their readiness for the next step in their career or the next learning for themselves. I think if you have questions about your capability for something, some opportunity in front of you, develop a few good trusted friends that'll give you clear-eyed view of whether it's for you or whether you really up for it and ready for it. But I find people, and especially women, underestimate themselves more than overestimate. So think about your capabilities, think about your interests, think about applicable situations where you've been able to step up and do something, and does it apply to the current opportunity? And you'll probably find that it does, and so it's worth going for it. Thirdly, there's no substitute for hard work. I mean, people talk about a lucky break. A lucky break's usually, working pretty hard. A door opens and you step up when the opportunity knocks, and you have the confidence to do it. I found that a lot of my opportunities that opened up for me, people ask me, did I plan to be secretary of an agency? I actually never did. I just worked really hard at the job in front of me. Again, when an opportunity presented itself or I was aware of it, I try not to underestimate myself. I tried to go for it. But at the base of all of that was just hard work. I love what I do, so maybe it's a little easier, but I think put yourself into a place where you love your work and then work hard at it and be good at it. And there's ways to let other people know about your good work. You don't want to be so quiet that people don't realize just how hard you're working, how good your work is. On the other hand, you don't want to be that person people are avoiding because they're always bragging about their work. But I think, people tend not to present the hard work they're doing enough and remind people, especially bosses, about it quite enough. I always find it best, and there are training courses about this as well, but I think it's true. You do better and you work better if you're working from your own strengths, and that requires understanding yourself and knowing yourself, which sounds easy, but it's actually not. A lot of people don't think enough about themselves or don't analyze themselves. Like, know how you learn, for instance. Are you a person who learns best from going off quietly by yourself and reading and reading and reading? Or you're a person that learns best from discussing a topic and listening and talking and gaining your knowledge from discussions and verbal communications, or watching a video or a movie or an online course about it? Because even understanding how you best learn will help you. Understanding how you best communicate, will help you. Understanding what motivates you to really get up and throw yourself into the next day really helps me. For me anyway, I recharge around people. I'm very interested in people, and this is why I wish I could see all of you. I'd love to be able to see you, but I love talking to people and engaging with them. So that's a strength of mine. But other people are different about their strengths. So just understand yours and then work from them and use your strengths to be what it is that you're good at, and present yourself that way. I also think it's important to be the leader or the person others want to work with. There's a lot of advice given when people are applying for jobs, and how, but at the end of the day, a lot of employers make decisions on, is this a person I want to work with? And some of the jobs I've gotten, I ask a hiring manager later why I was hired. This is a story from a long time ago, but it was a job that I was not completely qualified for. This was early in my career. It was environmental ed, and they really wanted somebody with a captain's license for a boat, a large boat that could haul 25 people and conduct environmental ed. Well, I did not have a captain's license. I had the biology degree. I was not from the Chesapeake Bay area. I did not know the estuarine ecosystem. I was Pennsylvanian with freshwater knowledge. And so I didn't have the boat license, and I didn't know estuaries, but I'd applied for a job in environmental ed down in Chesapeake Bay. And the hiring manager, after spending, it was a 2-day interview, and they looked at about 5 people. And at the end of my day in the field with them as part of the interview, I hung up the nets and put away the testing equipment, washed the boats down with the hiring manager. And on the way back to my car, he said, well, they had somebody fully qualified with a captain's license and knew estuarine ecology, the perfect person. So needless to say, I was surprised when I got the call that I had the job. I waited a couple of months and asked, well, why did you hire me? He said, well, you didn't think you were above cleaning the nets and cleaning the boats and putting equipment away and talking to the students. He said that the other guy that had perfect resume just seemed to be above all that, walked off the boat and walked away as soon as the students were off the boat. And so I was the person this hiring manager wanted to work with. And I learned everything I needed to know, and I got my license, so everything was fine. Another piece of advice is to seek and use mentor. And a mentor, I mean, people picture a mentor as being some older, wise person who's been there before, and that can be a great mentor if you have them. But I find you can find mentors anywhere. It can be a professor, it can be another student, it can be a parent. People don't use their parents enough, frankly. My dad was a great mentor for me in the field I'm in. My mother was a great mentor for me in terms of civic engagement, in terms of the importance of engaging in processes in a civil society. And thankfully, I did use both my parents as mentors. But again, there's a common misperception out there that if you need to ask a lot of questions, that maybe you're revealing that you don't know something. And actually, I think asking good questions reveals your intelligence and abilities, and not a weakness. So I think it's important to seek and use mentors wherever you can find them. I have a number of friends who do that very well. When they're about to make a job change, they literally survey friends and ask for feedback on themselves. How could I be better? How could I communicate better? People don't seem to understand me. So what's wrong? So if you can, the more open and more honest you can be, and use mentors, I think the better off you'll be, because you'll gain information and people will know that you care about their opinion and their ideas. So in DCNR, I'll have next slide, please. In DCNR, we have a program. It's really aimed at engaging with the next generation in our mission. We, in the conservation field that I'm in, we're planning the forest for 150 years from now. That literally the decisions we're making on paper are for a forest that will be there in 150 years or more. We're planning the parks that will be there in perpetuity. We're planning and protecting wildlife and plants for all Pennsylvanians for the future. So we call ourselves, we refer to us as being in the forever business. Conservation is the forever business. You can never, there's not a beginning and end. There's not a date like in the future where we won't be relevant or important. So we think long term, and we're recruiting actively the conservationists of tomorrow. In the program we've created to do this, the Pennsylvania Outdoor Corps is in conjunction with the Student Conservation Association, which has nationally has a strong presence in youth work programs. At DCNR, we have 2 programs. We have a 15 to 18-year-old summer youth program. And the one of more interest to some of you might be the adult program, which is age 18 to 25. And it's a 10-month position that provides hands-on experience working in our field. And it's hands-on in the terms of maintenance and building buildings and managing forests and parks, and the very hands-on work that goes into that. I mean, our Conservation Outdoor Corps has built sleeping shelters, they've painted buildings, they've removed invasive species, they've built trail, maintained trail, done a number of strong, important work for the public lands. So that's one avenue into our agency. Another avenue is through our regular workforce. We're part of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, so our work is managed through the Office of Administration, the state government, and so there's jobs that are posted in PA jobs that apply to DCNR or other agencies very similar. So encourage you to think about a career in conservation, a career with us. As I mentioned, we hire all kinds of people, not just conservationists. We have biologists, but we have more than biologists. We have a geologic survey element to our work that's located there in Pittsburgh, in fact, on Allegheny Island. Engineers, IT professionals, communication professionals, you name it. So it's a very broad array of opportunity in state government and in DCNR in particular. If that's not where you strive to be or not where you end up, becoming an engaged citizen in conservation is critical. Our mission is to manage the parks and forests of Pennsylvania for all citizens. That means 13 million people, and it includes everybody, and to be an active part of enjoying that, but also speaking up when they're threatened and letting your voice be known on how an agency can best serve you. It's important to be a good civic partner and be civically engaged with state government and with your parks and your forest lands. So I hope that you are intrigued by our mission. Hope you choose to get involved in some manner. And with that, I'm happy to take questions. I'm going to quickly check my plug here to make sure my laptop's plugged in because it just got a little dimmer, but make sure I still have the plug. I think it's good. Yeah, it's all right.
We can still see you there.
Good. Yeah, the screen got a little dim. I think my my little switch had been bumped on my bar here, but it's okay now.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have had some questions come in, some in advance and some that are coming in now. And I encourage everyone who is actively listening to the session with Secretary Dunn today, please use the Q&A function, type your questions for the Secretary, and we will get them asked. So one question that was sent in advance is, can you talk about your work at Penn Future and how that led you to DCNR?
Sure. So Penn Future, it's a long name for the organization is Citizens for Pennsylvania's Future. It has offices in Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and in the Wilkes-Barre area. And it's an advocacy group, an environmental advocacy group really focused on the rights of Pennsylvania citizens to clean air, pure water, and to access to public lands. And I've always, as I mentioned, that one speech I went to on Earth Day about conservation advocacy, I always felt that having a voice for something you care about is critical. And nonprofits like Penn Future, when you run a nonprofit like Penn Future, I know this is a business school, Roland Business School, it is a business. Nonprofit organizations are businesses, and so managing one, and there's a full realm of elements of managing any business, budgeting, ethics, filings with government, operating arrangements, fiscal management, board of directors, managing staff, paying staff, all of that. So managing a nonprofit is a very challenging and invigorating opportunity. And Penn Future has a strong voice in Pennsylvania on issues of climate, public lands, clean air, clean water, and the way they go about their works, engaging with members and the public, in lobbying the legislature, and engaging with the executive branch of government, sometimes the judicial branch. Penn Future is an organization that does have attorneys and does file lawsuits on criminal acts of environmental negligence as well. So Penn Future really defends the same rights that DCNR does, operates as an agency. DCNR's bucket of work includes the outdoors, parks, forests, and our role in clean water and clean air. So it's very much aligned, and the opportunity was because of being a leader in a major environmental nonprofit. I was looked at as a secretary of an agency that focuses on the same rights that citizens have.
So that connection was there.
Connection was there, yeah. And Penn Future is really working on climate like we are, and they work on a broader array of things since they're focused on things that affect DEP and DCNR, and the advocacy groups are often out there educating people just about just how important these issues really are for their government to get involved in, and they encourage people to get involved with our agency and with the legislature and other agencies.
So there's certainly an element of communication and maybe persuasion and education that comes from an agency like DCNR.
Absolutely, yes. It's funny, when the agency was set up, it's now 25 years old. It was to be the stewards and advocates for the natural resources of Pennsylvania. So that's very much what we do, is that we not only take care of them and steward them, but we talk about how important they are and how important they are to preserve and continue and enhance.
Yeah, you mentioned this idea of, you're in the forever business. And that's just such a fantastic way to think about it when we think about our environment.
It is, and that's why we look at the human element of the forever business. To looking at Pennsylvania, our demographics are changing. And so to have the future leaders of Pennsylvania understand conservation, we really need to have our diversity reflect the diversity of Pennsylvania. We need to engage young people of all ethnicities, of all backgrounds, in our work, because they're the decision makers of the future. They'll be sitting in my seat, in the governor's seat, in the legislative seat. And it's critical that they're engaged and care about the environment and conservation and public lands.
So when you mention and you think about, the importance of conservation, and think about climate related issues and challenges that we're facing, what are some of the key issues that you hope that, the citizens of Pennsylvania and beyond are really aware of and start to work towards addressing?
Well, one great opportunity we have right in front of us now in Pennsylvania, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative has been proposed by DEP, and it regulates carbon emission as an air quality issue. And DEP just closed the public comment on RGGI. It'll now go through a process. But I think if people are interested in making sure RGGI can happen, make sure they communicate with the legislature, with local officials, and get online and understand it. The beneficiary of RGGI would include the state parks and forest lands. Like, for instance, planting trees can help sequester carbon. Geologic sequestration underground can really help sequester carbon geologically, and would provide a solution for a fossil fuel burning facility a chance to be zero carbon, because the carbon would go underground. So we have the scientists who are working on that issue right now, and we have numerous opportunities to increase the tree cover in Pennsylvania. So we're part of the solution that the RGGI credits would be spent on So we're very interested in that passing in Pennsylvania. And what should be appealing about Reggie to everybody, it's a market-based solution. It really creates credits, and the credits can be spent on items that really put people to work on jobs like solar. Solar is a good business to be in because solar construction, number one, it's easier than it ever was. It's kind of plug and play. It can be done everywhere. Garages, rooftops, large solar fields. It can be done in old coal mine areas. And gaining workforce skills in solar, um, and really, putting solar up in Pennsylvania's communities is a great job opportunity, and that could be funded by Reggie. So we'd be, removing the carbon from the air and putting people to work, really taking advantage of the sun, and that's one of the big opportunities embedded in Reggie. So that's available right now. The governor's really supporting it. So some support in the legislature, but there's a lot of folks against it in the legislature. So I think support for Reggie would be very timely, would be one of the positive things someone could do for climate.
Yeah, you mentioned initially one of your 6 focus areas was economic impact. And it sounds like there are a number of ways where you can very specifically connect environmental impact to economic impact and see that relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, recreation business is big business. It's only recently been understood that way. I think people thought, well, recreation is just kind of something you do on a Saturday afternoon, but it's actually big business. And if you think about Pennsylvania, our number one industry is agriculture. Our second is tourism. A lot of our tourism is people traveling around their own states, some of it's surrounding states, but people spend money in the outdoor experience. Our number one tourism destination is the outdoors. So our tourism agency, our sister agency, the Department of Community Economic Development, they focused on the outdoors as a major element of their tourism. A second part of it's history. So even the industrial history that we have there across Pennsylvania, particularly the Pittsburgh region, is a big economic draw. So people recreate to see and learn about history. For instance, on the Great Allegheny Passage, if you get your bike from the university today and bike up the Monongahela, and you'll pass a place called Cary Furnace. It's a Rivers of Steel site, a preserved iron furnace, steel furnace that is a big attraction. So people travel to see things like that. So there's just a lot of the history there at Point State Park, layers and layers of history at Point State Park. I know the students, I probably go over there to take a walk or relax, but if you can go into the Fort Pitt Museum and learn about the history there, it's pretty phenomenal. So that's another reason people travel. We have a lot of history embedded in our parks and forests. And our sister agency, Historic and Museum Commission, has museums like Fort Pitt and other museums that really help tell the story. So we've got a lot of reasons for people to recreate in Pennsylvania. We've got thousands of miles of rivers and waterways. We've got the mountains and trails and 121 parks and 6,000 local parks. And this generates a lot of economy.
So the historical piece is certainly one connection to
Right.
Recreation, which maybe sometimes people don't always connect that. Another thing you mentioned earlier was recharging, and that really stands out to me, especially given, the pandemic environment that we've all been in, and there have been, stay-at-home orders and social distancing, but yet we have this amazing ability through recreation in the outdoor environment to still adhere to social distancing guidelines while having that opportunity to recharge. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I mentioned as a biologist, I studied evolution. If you think about humans' evolution, it was really outdoors in nature. It's really only in the last couple hundred years humans have really become more indoor creatures, and so we've evolved to be outdoors. And there's many studies show that people's mental health and health benefits from a little bit of time outdoors. Other cultures recognize this. Asian cultures recognize, Japanese culture particularly, recognize what they call forest bathing, going out in the woods and just sitting in the green and being present and aware. It literally slows your heart rate and literally puts your brain waves on a much longer wavelength. But walking outdoors has the added, health benefit of physical, health as well as mental health. And just time spent outdoors is a recharge for people. So it's almost like a prescription, for mental stress and physical problems, to get outdoors and take a little walk. It's recommended by all kinds of medical professionals. But what we found with the pandemic, I think people's world was closing in many ways, or limitations on what they could do, and to find out there's a part of their life that's actually wide open. You can go outside and take a walk. And obviously there's all kinds of special precautions to take, have a mask on if you can't be socially distanced from people, or if you're on a crowded trail or you're passing people. But there's so many acres of public lands out there that you can really create your own space and then get away and recharge. And fortunately, we have that all over Pennsylvania. Really have a lot of it there in the Pittsburgh region, really right close to the university, right in walking distance. So it's a good place to be.
Yeah, we really are fortunate in that way to
Mhm.
have, the Commonwealth as such a beautiful state with so much outdoor space and so many opportunities for recreation in a way that is beneficial to the environment and allows us to engage more directly with the environment.
Right. A lot of people are commuting into, down to the Point area from other places on the Great Allegheny Passage. Just given the traffic in the area, sometimes it's actually faster to get on the Great Allegheny Passage, get on the trail, and come right downtown. But to me, it's always intriguing to get on a big trail and realize, like, you could go to Washington D.C. on that trail. That's pretty magical. So that's why I like hiking big trails or biking on bigger trails.
And it really connects to resilience. And that's one of the things with our
Mhm.
Women in Industry initiative that we've been focusing on for the spring of 2021 is that idea of resilience. And then connecting, recharging, and connecting to the environment can certainly be something that supports that efforts towards resilience.
Yeah, speaking about community resilience, so if you were to travel on the Great Allegheny Passage toward Washington, there are these trail towns along the Great Allegheny Passage the whole way, and in Pennsylvania, Laurel Highlands. So, from West Newton to Connellsville to um, to Confluence. And so the resilience of those communities, they had been coal communities and steel communities, and their economic resilience and social resilience now is leaning more on the trail. And the trail brings, I saw an estimate about 40 million in economic activity in the trail towns of the Great Allegheny Passage.
Wow.
So the community resilience to adapt to the asset they have. The asset they used to have was a steel mill. The asset they have now is a trail and a river and a surrounding landscape. And so seeing these communities' resiliency in the face of change is critical. And I think that resiliency you mentioned is a personal resiliency, but a community resiliency means like looking ahead. What are the assets you have? What are the opportunities you have? And uh, I think number one, green energy and the climate initiative provides that energy resiliency, looking at solar. And I think the recreation economy and the travel economy and the quality of place we have, these communities with a story and with a history and character and assets around them, that resiliency will really help Pennsylvania in the long run.
Yeah, and sometimes that idea, as you said, of reframing assets so that you can view them a little bit differently can put you on a different path and still create that economic vibrancy.
Right. It's interesting that what I see in some of these communities is actually some young people have stepped up, and sometimes the missing ingredients really vision, and often it's a young person will come in and with some energy and really really turn a community around. I think younger people maybe think older folks won't listen to them, but you have a good idea and you're willing to talk about it, and people will follow you. And I've seen it happen in communities across Pennsylvania where the missing ingredient was vision, and someone comes in and provides that, and then connects to uh, opportunities, connects to agencies and others who can help, connects to mentors and others who have done it, it connects to nonprofits who are in that space. I've seen a lot of success stories coming out of you know visionaries like that of all ages.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier following your passion, and that's something
Hmm.
that's so important to think about, and how that can ultimately, it can start out as maybe a smaller initiative, but ultimately lead to a career direction for someone.
Absolutely. I think that, I mean, if you have passion and if you allow yourself to feel your passion and recognize it and then use it, then it's rewarding and self-generating. It's not like a feeling, oh, I got to get up and go do this today. It's like, wow, what can we do today?
Now, we did get a question in related to DCNR,
Hmm.
and one of our attendees is asking how you're incorporating intersectional environmentalism into your projects and your future in legislation.
Let's say the word again, intersectional.
Intersectional environmentalism, um, thinking about how accounts of air pollution, um, maybe the higher amounts of air pollution among Black communities, or those who may have higher rates of food security, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So we're part of we have 5 years ago, we set up a DEIJ work group in our agency to try to get at that question. So our mandate by constitution is, interestingly, is to serve all Pennsylvanians, all 13 millions of Pennsylvanians. And as if that's not enough, then it's including generations yet to come. That's in the Constitution. So now we have to think about everybody and next generations. And as we all know, communities are not equally served. And so we're looking at many, many factors, everything from our own workforce to how we serve communities. So in our last, we do recreation planning in a very deliberate way, and it's a 5-year plan. In our last 5-year plan, we asked to get data on identifying Pennsylvania's, just environmental justice regions, and how are we reaching them, and what are some measures we can use to make sure our grants are reaching all Pennsylvanians, and what are the barriers to that. And one barrier is there's a matching requirement. So if you're in a community that does not have local match, that's a barrier to a grant. So then we're looking at, okay, so what's our flexibility as an agency to take and marry different funding sources to deliver that deliver our product on the ground, like a park or a trail. Another is analysis of how are people being served. We picked a criteria that everybody should have a park or trail within 10 minutes of home. That's because of people's busy lifestyles. And, in the past, maybe people could, on a Saturday get in a station wagon and go to a park. Well, not everyone has the transportation. Not everybody has the time. So our goal was to get a park and a trail within 10 minutes of every Pennsylvanian. And that helps meet that need. However, we needed to know where there is and isn't that access, and recreational access obviously is very different in a dense urban environment like say Philly, where the history of Philly is built very dense. I mean, it's a dense urban community versus a rural area, and there's there's lack of amenities in both places. But this analysis that we had done by the Trust for Public Land showed us the communities and areas that weren't equally served. So we have maps on location. We have the EJ community list. And then finally, we looked at our mission. Some of what we do, like the Tree Vitalize program, which is in Pittsburgh, it's also in communities across Pennsylvania, like in Philly. So yeah, urban trees bring property value, they beauty, but in a changing climate, urban trees really become a matter of life and death. There was a study done in Philly that in the dense urban parts of Philly, it could be 22 degrees hotter in the summer than a shaded community.
Wow.
And by shade, the shaded analysis was more than 40% shade tree, shade tree cover, shade on the ground. And so that means urban trees are critical to cooling the urban environment. So our Tree Vitalize program, we're really beefing up and reorganizing to help really bring trees to the communities of Pennsylvania. And there in Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania Conservancy is our on-the-ground partner that runs a very good Tree Vitalize program. But there's the human infrastructure side that has to be in place. The city, the communities needs to be able to take care of the trees. Urban trees need local tree tenders. People have committed to, watering them, taking care of them to get them to grow. But in turn, they can literally help save lives, because even though people think of hurricanes and tornadoes as killing more people, in truth, the weather event that kills the most people are heat waves. And the people that are harmed the most are in the urban areas and places where it's already too hot and perhaps they don't have air conditioning. So that's how we're like focusing our mission to communities that really need our assistance. And our DEIJ work is findable on our website, and we'll be putting more up about that. We're putting up signs on parks and forests. You are welcome here. Again, one of the findings and learnings we had was, people of color sometimes don't feel they're as welcome in a park or a forest environment. And just to be clear about it, we're putting signs up, you are welcome here, and a link to our initiatives on that. So that's some of the things we're doing. I think it's a journey. I think we have a long way to go, but it's something that all of us in the state government are doing and working on right now. But always looking and welcoming ideas on how we can better serve all communities.
Oh, that's fantastic that you're really looking at those intersections and able to identify some areas for continued work, where ongoing effort. I mean, just the idea that there are some connections to the environment, like you mentioned, heat waves that can cause such devastation. So they're things that we have to think about, and they overlap not just DCNR but other state departments as well.
Absolutely. And one thing that would be great to see in economics on solar getting better and better, but it's cheaper still to put solar arrays in a field somewhere. But if you can put solar power in an urban environment and get the shade effect in a big parking area, that's a win-win. You shade the pavement, and that's pavement that's not burning hot, to fry an egg in the summer, and it's generating solar electricity. So looking at the built environment, so urban engineering, urban planning is also an important element of that.
Well, thank you so much. And we are moving towards the end of our session. So I wanted to invite you to share, Secretary Dunn, your final thoughts for our audience. What are some things that you hope they remember and keep in mind after today's session?
Well, I hope, and thank you for attending and listening, and I hope that you're intrigued to get involved in some manner in our broad mission or in our agency. Again, we have many inroads into state government work, and if you're interested, please explore those. At the very end of the day, I hope you choose to avail yourself of the opportunities that are there for you in the public lands of Pennsylvania. If you're a Pennsylvanian, they belong to you by Constitution. And so you are wealthy. You own 121 parks and 2.2 million acres of forest, and hope you decide to come visit them. And hope you get involved in some manner in government, whether it's if you become someone who's just civically engaged and weighing in and supporting things like Reggie or supporting your public lands, or if you choose to pursue a career in a related field. Hope you choose to get involved. And again, good to speak to all of you. I've been intrigued by your university as I pass the sign, so it's nice to have the opportunity. It's nice to have the opportunity, particularly to speak to women and encourage them to step up into this field.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time today. And I want to transition now to Sandy, who will wrap up our session today.
More. Well, once again, we want to thank you very much, Secretary Dunn, for joining us. really not just informative, but really sort of eye-opening of some of the things that we need to be concerned with and where we need to become involved for our future. So thank you very much for that. Also want to thank all the participants today for taking time to join us. And of course, to thank those behind the scenes at the Point Park University and the Roland School of Business that make this initiative possible. And I would like to give you a few quick save the dates. Our annual event, Accelerating Women in Industry, will be virtual on Friday, March 5th. It is a half-day workshop focusing on holistic resilience, and we will be having some of the workshops will be qualify for human resource management, continuing education credits. Our next Win Wednesday virtual speaker series is going to be on Wednesday, February 17th. And we're going to have a conversation about allyship. And then our first Fireside Friday is actually this Friday. It is at noon. It will be virtual, and we'll be joined by individuals from the organization CGI, a global IT and business consulting firm. And we're going to be finding your fit, successful women navigating their career journey. As always, if you would like to reach out to Doreen or myself, you can email us or you can contact us directly through our website, acceleratingwin.org. You can register for all events on our WIN's website, acceleratingwin.org. And if you have a topic or something you think would be a good fit for the WIN initiative and you would like to share it with us, please either email me directly or reach out through our website. And then finally, as I leave you and we thank everyone for today, please always remember you're not alone. And together, we're going to make a difference. Have a great day.